Hey everyone, welcome to Birds of a Feather. Today we've got a really exciting new tool in the craft room. It's the xTool P2 CO2 laser. We're going to show you how to set it up, but if you go look at other videos, it's not really rainbows and unicorns. There are many different troubleshooting items that may come up that you don't necessarily see on these other videos. So we've run into just about everything we can imagine, and we're going to give you the lowdown on what we did to troubleshoot these things.
Color outside the lines.
Before our P2 arrived, we got busy building a workbench for it. It'll hold the inline fan setup that we're going to show you later. Look what we have here. We've got an xTool P2, and we're just about to unbox it. But for now, let's see if this made it in one piece. We're a little concerned because of the way that it was manhandled off the truck when it got delivered, but hopefully it's well packed. So let's see what happens. Okay.
At this point, we just lift it out.
Let's just take a break and maybe we'll lift it onto our new table. This is going to take two of us, so I'm going to stop recording for now. Okay, so we're onto the new workbench, and it really didn't take any effort at all. It was a real slog to get it down the stairs because it weighs 130 pounds, but it's looking great. Nope, as we pan around, you'll notice that it's got a big crack in the side. When your new P2 arrives, make sure to give it the once over. If you spot any damage, snap some pictures. Then file a claim with the shipping folks and notify xTool pronto. They'll hook you up with the next steps and guide you through the return process if needed. Remove all the foam and items you find in your P2 and set them aside. This is what you should have. Once you unpack everything that's inside the P2, you'll have one bottle of antifreeze. You'll need to refer to the instructions to determine just how much to measure out for your own region, an instruction manual, and complementary materials. The self-check guide is a must-read, so don't skip that one. A set of material clamps, a hex key for adjusting the mirrors, a screwdriver. Note that it is double-sided, so flip it around when you come to fill the water tank. Extra screws in case you lose one, a funnel, USB and power cords, a clamp, and exhaust duct. This is great because they actually have a barcode we can scan, so I really appreciate having that barcode for the setup video. However, it is a little defunct right now because it doesn't have the updated optical path test. But we'll take you through that later and show you how that's done. So we've got a little bit of material to start with. Underneath these slats, it looks like there's some more material, and that looks like acrylic. So we'll get that out. Before you get further along, be sure to read the booklets that come with your P2. They're very quick reads. Now, I also want to mention that we've got an inline duct fan. We're going to install that. And this is the piece that we've made for our window. We're going to show you how to do that later. And of course, we can't really get going until we're set up with our ventilation. The next step is to turn these thumb screws counterclockwise. So you want to turn it towards you. And we're going to remove the bracket that's holding the gantry in place. Now there's actually two thumb screws. There was one on this side and there's one right here. It can be difficult to see because it's black, so we're going to turn it counterclockwise. And now we can remove the first bracket on the left. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. And there you go, the bracket comes out. Now that the thumb screws are out, we can move this forward. And we can remove the foam. Okay, in eyeballing this, it seems to me like this gantry is way out of alignment. It seems like it's closer here and further away on the other side. So we're going to have to address that. So let's just move it back for now. The next step is to remove the screw that's right here. So I'm just going to remove that plastic, and I'll get the screwdriver and I'll remove that screw. Okay, so I just want to show you that the P2 comes with a screwdriver that just pops right in here, and there's the end. Note that this piece is double-sided, so flip it around if you don't have the right side. Now I'm realizing that this tip isn't magnetized, so I can't really grab the screw too easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to magnetize the tip here and I'll be able to lift it right out. got a Tool Talk Tuesday all about this handy magnetizer tool, so we're going to link that up above if you'd like to learn more. Now that it's magnetized, I can just lift it right out. I'm going to pop it into a tray that's magnetized too so I don't lose all my bits and pieces. Now that the screw is out, I can just slide the tray out and I can remove these materials. So that was 2 cast acrylic sheets, and this tray can go back. And now we can put back the screw. So I'm going to pop some of the acrylic into this handy dandy drawer and clean up my workspace here. So let's just get this out of the way. Now I also want to show you how out of alignment the gantry is. So if you look at this side, you can judge the distance here as opposed to here. It's actually out by 1/4 inch. I took a ruler to it. So we're going to have to get that back into alignment. As you can well imagine, these machines do go through a long way to get to where they're going and shipping, so they do get tossed around. I'm not surprised that the gantry is out of alignment with the distance it did have to come in shipping.
To resolve the issue with the gantry,
I'll just show you that I did push it all the way to the back, and then I gave it a gentle push on the left side here.
going to push on the side that's the furthest away from the back of the machine when you measure. So for me, that was the left side. I just want to point out, because I didn't film this, is that I pushed against the rail, not the laser head itself, and it did snap into place. After measuring again, I was still out 1/16 inch, so I repeated the process and the problem was solved.
I just want to point out that this little booklet here, it's the self-check guide. If you read through it, it's got some very important information here. That's how I was able to understand how to check the X-axis guide and how to fix it. They've got 2 different ways to do it here.
This is the only piece of information that actually has troubleshooting tips, so don't lose this because it's not available online from what I can find. I will also have a link in the description below so that you can go to see other troubleshooting measures. We've written a whole blog on the beginner's guide to the xTool P2, so go check that out.
So I'm going to move on. What I'm going to do is I'll remove this label here.
A little ASRM for your listening pleasure, so I'm not going to speed this part up.
And this is great because it ensures that you can't open the door when the xTool is actually in use. Now we're going to move over to the side. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn this to reset it. And now we can move on to filling the glass tubes. But before we do that, we are going to inspect it just to make sure that nothing's cracked. Next step is to remove the screws. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just going to lift up these tabs. Okay, so I think I need the other end of the screwdriver here. I'm going to flip it around and put it back in because it looks to me like it's this sort of hexagonal shape.
You might not realize that the screwdriver provided with the xTool P2 actually has 2 different sides, so do what I did, take it out, flip it over, and you'll be able to use it on the screws.
And again, this is magnetized so it holds the screw. I'm just going to go put it in a little dish so I don't lose it. I'm going to continue removing the rest of the screws as you see there. And we're going to turn this around and do the same on the back so that we can remove the back cover. Conveniently, they've provided this barcode that you can scan, and it takes you to YouTube so that you can see the unboxing. So that's the next part, is doing the back, right there.
I actually ended up breaking one of the tabs when I pulled up on this, so just be sure that you're pulling straight up and down, not rocking it towards you in any way, because it is prone to snapping.
These are longer, noticeably longer than the ones in the front. So no chance I can get those mixed up. Now it's time to remove this label. And let's lift it off.
As I mentioned, I just couldn't get the knack of getting this cover off, so I'm going to skip through this part and we'll move on to filling the tubes.
Okay, just broke one nail, but I got it off. Now let's inspect the glass tube. It looks pretty good to me, so let's remove that cap and get some fluid in there. Now it's time to calculate just how much water and antifreeze you're going to need. So in my particular region, I think our lowest average temperature is probably around -5.
You may be wondering if you even have to add the antifreeze if you're in an indoor space like we are, but I'm still going to go ahead and do that because you never know when a furnace is going to fail or where you have a power out and your temperatures drop below freezing, so it doesn't hurt to be safe.
For my region, I'm going to pour in 280 mils of antifreeze, followed by 820 mils of water.
Be sure that you're only using distilled or purified water for this step. Tap water just isn't going to cut it.
Just going to pour it in slowly. So I'm using distilled water. For my region, I'm going to pour out 820 mils. Because this is impossible to see, I'm just going to mark it. So we'll go ahead and pour that. Now we need to connect the power. Let's turn this on. We're going to give it 30 seconds. And then we're going to let this fill for 30 seconds and top it up with water. Going to count out 30 seconds.
Now you can go ahead and pour in the rest of the distilled water slowly.
300 mils, topping up. Now I can put the cap back on. I don't know what these water bubbles are all about or if that's even a concern, but the tube did fill, so I'm going to close it up and move on to next steps. So it's time to put this back on, and I'm noticing that it looks like one of these snapped right off when I tried to lift it out. I don't know where it dropped to or if that's a problem, but I'm just a little bit nervous about that. Well, it didn't take long for me to discover where that piece went. As you can see, there's a missing piece, and the missing piece ended up right in here. I'm not sure if that's going to affect how this goes back together, but I'll be back tomorrow morning and we're going to set up our inline fan. But for now, I'm going to put this back. Just want to say that it went on easier than it came off. Keep a flashlight handy so that you can actually see where the screws go back. It can be really difficult to find them, but with a flashlight it's easy.
I'll finish putting all the screws back in and then I'll see you guys again in the morning and we're going to continue with the inline fan.
Before we can install our inline fan, we have to secure the window. So we've cut out a few pieces here that are going to fit into the frame of the window. We've got a few different thicknesses. We also have to put some weather stripping on to fill the gaps because we did have to make this shorter in order to be able to fit it in. This is the window up here. It's currently open. The screen is in place. We're going to set it in place, see which one fits best. So here I'm testing out the thicker one. You can see that's pretty thick. And we've got gaps. Now you can see the gap at the top. That is going to fit snug once we get that weather strip in place. It's sitting on the bottom. We've got just enough room to put that in.
I tested out different thicknesses of weather stripping here, and what I ended up doing was a combination of two different ones, as you'll see in a moment.
So I ended up using the gray on top and bottom, and this thicker one at the sides. I'm just going to finish off this last one and pop it in the window and check for fit. So here's the ring that's going to go through here. We're just going to screw it down, and then on the other side we'll be able to attach the hose to that. So this is the inline fan from xTool, and we're going to be adding this on. So let's just unpack and see what we've got here. We've got instructions. Now I don't think the hose that comes with this is going to be long enough, so we did purchase another one right there. Okay, so after unpacking everything, we're just going to take a moment to read the instructions. Don't forget that your P2 actually comes with a 3-inch hose. I totally forgot that and thought I was missing something. I couldn't set this up. But you've got your 6-inch hose there. That comes with your P2. We've got some kind of a reducer here, and the unit itself, and some clamps. So this hose and clamp actually comes with the P2, and what we've done is we've got it onto there. This was sort of like tucked into the center, so I just splayed it out. And now we just have to get it on there. It's a little finicky. I think I'm almost there.
Another pair of hands is always helpful.
Okay, now we're going to pinch this.
Okay, so I'm going to hold that.
If you push on the hose, make sure it's tight, and then you move this clamp up onto there.
That's
there you
it.
go, it's clamped on.
There. So we're good to go there. So that's attached. Now we're gonna assemble the rest of the fan on our table, and we're gonna move it down here. I just want to show you, I've got a shelf set up right there, right below my P2. So we'll finish setup on the table. It's a pretty easy setup. You just have to pay attention to which way these arrows are going and follow the instructions in the booklet. And so on the left-hand side here, we're just going to put on the 6-inch hose. Get it over this. It's a pretty tight fit. The struggle is real, guys. Let's try to twist it on. It's actually a good thing that it's tight because you just don't want air leakage around this. So now that this is on, we're going to tighten this clamp down. And it's got this really nice thumb screw here that you can just turn. You're just going to turn it clockwise and it's going to tighten up. That seems good. Now we're going to put this reducer on, and you want this to be a good snug fit. As you saw earlier, I did the 3-inch hose. I'm going to put it over this end and clamp that too. Now I don't know if this hose is actually going to be long enough to reach my window, but I'm going to give it a try, and if not, as I showed you earlier, we did order an extra long one from Amazon. So we'll give this a try because we've got it. Before I connect everything up, I did put some rubber bumpers on the bottom, just to keep it from moving around on the shelf here. The last step is to connect it right here and then clamp it. Just one thing to note, and I don't know if this makes any difference, but it just seems to me that it would be better not to tighten the clamp against the metal wire here, because you can tear the fabric. So I've got it snugly just around the fabric itself so that this doesn't rub. So this is the part you saw earlier that's going to go in the window, and this is the flange. So this is the back side.
The outside.
The outside. What we did was we just set it in place here and we marked it with pencil so that we can screw it in, and these screws, 6 by 1/2 right there. So we're just going to go ahead and pre-drill, and then we're going to screw that in.
So we use a drill bit that's the size of the inside of the screw, so the threads still grip the wood, and we set it for the depth of the screw so we can't go through this wood. So it's shorter than the depth of the wood in the pre-drill. When you pre-drill for screws to go in the wood, it's actually a stronger joint if you pre-drill, because then the screw has room to go in without tearing the fibers as much, and it just drills in the wood. Put this in place, put a screw in place, and we won't do it all the way till we get all 4 in.
You don't want to crank down too hard on this either, because you don't want to crack the plastic.
There's 4 screws.
I'll probably do like a bead of caulking around the outside just to make it weather tight.
Yeah, you could have put a little bead under this. We could take it apart later and put a bead of caulking underneath it. And
oh, well, we just want to make sure it's going to work.
But we
first.
want to make,
So now we can fit it in the window. And on this side,
we've got a 5.5 to 6-inch clamp that's going to go on there with the hose, and it's going to clamp onto here. So the hose will stay on here. We fit this into the window, shut the window on it, and we can vent outside. And when we're done our work, we can lift this out of the window and close the window.
Now I might just put a handle on this so I can grip it again.
Yes.
Because
maybe 2 handles.
yeah.
As I suspected, the shorter duct didn't unfortunately work, so we're switching over to this longer one.
So 25 feet. If that doesn't work, I don't know what will. By the way, this safety retractor is great for opening packages. So immediately I can see the difference. This is lined with some sort of an aluminum on the inside. I guess it's more heavy duty, it'll prevent tearing. We're just going to reconnect it. We won't show you that again. It's just a matter of getting it on there and tightening the clamp. Okay, we're ready to go. We've got it all clamped.
And we have a sliding window here that opens, and this is going to fit right into the track.
As you can see, we didn't find handles, but we couldn't wait. We just had to try it out. So as you'll see later, we did manage to get some after the fact and install them. Jumping ahead, here it is with those handles, but we didn't do that till later.
We have to push it in at an angle.
I am. There we go. And then we shut the window on it. It's sealed up. Foam around all 4 sides. The window's foamed on this side, foamed on that side.
So here it is in the window.
And we can still move this around with that hose. It's a 25-foot hose.
I just want to mention that I've got the P2 plugged into the surge protector here, and I'm going to do the same thing for the inline fan. There. So the inline fan and the P2 is both plugged in.
So what I would do eventually, honey, oh, it's running. Wow. Huh. I would put a power, not a surge protector, just a power bar in here or on the side. Those plugged into it with an on-off switch. So if you need to automatically turn all this off, you can just click the rocker switch.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just in case there's a fire. Well, there is an emergency stop right there.
Not for this.
Yeah.
Not for your fan. So it'd just be easier.
I just want to talk a little bit about fire safety. We ordered a few packages of these fire blankets just in case we ever need them. We don't have access to a CO2 fire extinguisher right now, so in its place we've got this fire blanket. All you have to do is hang it on a wall and you pull to release it, and it's, I can just show you, it's totally made of fiberglass. So it just comes right out, you throw it over the fire, and it suffocates it. So well worth the price.
I'll provide a link down below in the description.
So now we're going to set up for the mirror adjustments, and hopefully we'll be able to actually do a little project in this. So I turned on the P2 at the back here, and I've now connected it to my computer, and I have this message that's telling me that there's a new firmware version. So I'm going to have to update that before I proceed with the mirror alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and update, and we'll be right back.
To get to the optical path test, you're going to go into the XES software, you're going to hit that cog in the right hand corner right beside the name of your P2, and you're going to go into setting, and then right there in the list there's optical path test, and you're going to click on test. It explains a little bit about the test and then advises you to get the masking tape ready for the next steps. In addition to the masking tape, you're also going to need the screwdriver and the hex key.
First step was to move the laser module to the front corner of the machine, and it just did that. So let's open the lid, and it has moved to the right. Next step is to remove this cover. And then we're going to click next. So we're clicking next. Now we're going to stick a piece of masking tape over the optical path. So the instructions say to put a piece of tape over the first optical path, which is here. I'm just going to go like this so I can see it. Now we're going to press next on the computer. Okay, now we're going to close the lid of the machine, and we're going to click pulse and check for the mark.
Here's another troubleshooting tip for you. Because of the firmware update, the engineers at xTool decided to turn the power way down low, which is a great safety feature, but we mistakenly thought that the laser didn't even hit the tape at all. But that isn't always the case. All you have to do is try to pulse a few times and see if that helps. We even canceled the optical test and put it on hold while we were figuring it out. If after pulsing a few times it really doesn't show up, there are other steps you can take, but for now, let's just see what happened with ours.
I do see there's a burn mark on there, but it's not going through. See, I did see a black mark, but it's not burning through.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, most people are saying it's burning right through, so put extra tape on so it doesn't burn as fast. And you can double click it to get more of a burn, or
You're
one
right.
click to get less.
Since the first hole was only slightly off center, we decided to test the second hole. And so what we did was we fudged the test, we just put center, moved on to the second step, and out of curiosity we wanted to see where exactly it would hit. We applied a fresh piece of tape on the back of the gantry. Turns out it was dead center, so it's a good thing that we didn't change anything for the first optical test.
So the third optical test is going to be right here. So we're going to close the lid and conduct another test again. We're going to send a pulse through and see what happens. So the last optical test is off center, and it barely burned a hole or a mark. We had to pulse it several times. It looks like it's in the center, but it needs to come up vertically. So ours is lower center here. We'll just click. I believe that's next, but I think it's looks like Chinese. I guess the software isn't quite updated yet. Okay, so now we're going to have to loosen the screws and make adjustments.
So I'm going to pause here.
So we're going to turn the set screws. We've already done the first two, so there's 1 and 2, and we're on the third one. So we're just going to loosen it.
So these little lock screws lock your adjustment screws so they don't turn out accidentally. So we have to loosen them first, like that.
Okay, that's good enough.
Now, if you come to the front, the instructions on the screen said to go to the lower right and to turn it counterclockwise 45 degrees, which is 1/8 of a turn, and that should raise the laser up a little bit. So we're just going to turn it about that much. And then they want us to repulse it without tightening anything.
Okay, so we're going to do another pulse. And I think we're going to leave the original tape.
We're just going to see where the dot moves.
So as you can see, the dot did move, but now it's too much to the left. So we have to bring it over to the right. And it has to come up just slightly. So more adjustments. Okay, let me just block this light to show you that it's almost right on. It just has to come slightly to the right to be in the center. But it's looking pretty good. We just have to go horizontally now. So the xTool instructions in the XES software is telling us to move both the lower and the upper screw just slightly to the right. So we're just going to give a slight turn. Okay, and then we're going to pulse it again. Now, we still have this tape on. We might have to remove the tape, but we'll just do this one and see if it moves. It's starting to look pretty good, but we might have to finesse it, just barely a millimeter. So, okay, we're going to say that's pretty much in the center. It looks good to me. Hard to get it focused here because the light is right there, but you can see it's pretty much dead center. So we're going to tighten up the screws.
Directions first.
Yeah, let's go check the directions.
Instructions do warn you that you're going to have to do this multiple times, but the instructions in this new firmware update are great. So there's really not a lot of guesswork. It's just a matter of turning in increments, very tiny increments, until you're dead on center.
Hit next. Now we're going to check whether the laser module is close to the right of the machine. Is it close to the right?
Yeah, it's on the right.
So we're done.
It didn't tell us to tighten those screws. Oh, it's moving back. We're going to tighten the screws.
Oh no.
Okay.
Now when we went to check the software, it didn't tell us to tighten the screws again. So we did tighten the set screws, and we do have to put this cover back on. It didn't indicate that. So I don't know if that's because the software isn't totally updated yet, if it's still in testing or what. But our last test was dead in the middle, and we're going to test it one more time now that we've tightened the screws, just to be certain.
But on the software, we're just going to run through everything
Yeah, we'll just run through it again.
so that we get the last test.
It's finally time to cut something out.
Okay, I'm going to try to cut out a star.
To do our first little test cut, first we're going to put in a piece of the 3mm basswood that came with the machine. Then we're going to hit refresh on the camera so that we can see it. We're going to open up the side panel where all the shapes are, and we're going to choose a star and drag it onto the canvas. Now you can move it to wherever you like and position it. I'm going to choose cut. And if you want to do a manual setting, you can easily put in your power and your speed. But xTool does have a preset for 3mm basswood, so you can select it right here under manual setting. If you have a lot of things to cut and you want to save material, you can hit the button in the upper right hand corner called Capture Camera View, and you can zoom in to see how far you can move your items and get them in really, really tight. So let's go back to the setting tab, and we're going to choose, as I mentioned previously, the preset, which is 3mm basswood, and that'll automatically generate your power and your speed. As you can see, it also fills in the thickness for you. Now it's just a matter of pressing this green process button, and we're going to come into the preview screen right after this. If you're happy with what you see, press start and then press the button on the P2 to get it cutting. Notice the warning in the upper right hand corner. Never leave the P2 unattended while it's cutting. Always see it through to the end. Let's move over to the P2 and see how it does.
Wow, that was fast. So, let's open the lid. Take a look. Cool. Looks pretty good. Let's check the back. Yeah, nice clean cut. I cannot wait to design for this.
Once you're done, you can close your project and it will prompt you to save it if you want to print it again. So you can either do that or just close out. Well, that wraps it up for our xTool P2 CO2 Laser Beginner's Guide. Here's a sneak peek of the project we have coming up, but you're gonna have to wait a week. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see it. If you got value from this video and are going to be buying an xTool P2, please consider using the affiliate link in the comments. We do earn from qualifying purchases at no extra cost to you, but we proudly donate all earnings from this YouTube channel and our blog to Alzheimer's research annually. Want some unique, budget-friendly upcycle DIYs? Be sure to watch another video.